The receipt in Griffin Wexford's hand was shaking, and Griffin Wexford did not shake. Not in boardrooms where men lost their pensions on his word. Not in courtrooms where lawyers twice his age flinched under his silence. Not even the night his own father told him he'd never amount to anything warmer than a bank vault, but standing outside a rundown laundromat on the corner of 9th and Colfax, staring at a single line item on a piece of paper that had come back to him after 24 hours. Griffin Wexford's hand would not stop trembling, because the woman he'd handed his unlimited black card to, the woman with nothing, the woman he'd expected to disappear into a shopping spree and vanish, had spent $41 on herself. $41 and $62,418 on somebody else's life. 3 days earlier, Griffin hadn't known her name. He'd been walking to a car that cost more than most people's homes when he saw her outside a gas station, sitting on a milk crate with a cardboard sign that didn't ask for money, it asked for a job, any job, willing to work. Beside her sat a boy, maybe 7 years old, wrapped in a coat 2 sizes too big, drawing shapes in the dust on the sidewalk with his finger, like it was the only paper he had. Griffin had seen 1,000 people like her. He always looked away. That was the deal he made with himself a long time ago. Well, look away. Keep moving. The world is too big to fix and too small to matter. But this time, something in the boy's drawing stopped him. It wasn't a house or a sun or a dog. It was a woman standing tall, with wings. That your mother? Griffin asked before he could stop himself. The boy looked up, unafraid, in a way that unsettled him. That's what she'll look like when she's not tired anymore. Griffin didn't remember deciding to crouch down. He didn't remember deciding to ask the woman her name, but she told him Coralee Vance, and there was something in the way she said it. Flat, guarded, like a name she was still deciding whether to trust him with. She didn't ask him for anything. She didn't even really look at him. She looked at her son. That night, Griffin couldn't stop thinking about her. Not the way people expected a billionaire to think. About a homeless woman, some hollow performance of guilt he'd forget by morning. It gnawed at him. Differently. He'd built an empire on reading people knowing exactly what they wanted, what they'd sacrifice, what they'd lie about. And Coralee Vance was the first person in a decade he could not read at all. So he went back. He found her 3 blocks over. Same milk crate. Same boy, and he did something his board of directors would have called reckless, his lawyers would have called insane, and his late father would have called exactly the kind of soft-headed nonsense that ruins men like him. He handed her his card, black, no name embossed except his, no limit anyone had ever tested. 24 hours, he said. Spend it however you want, no conditions, no cameras, no strings, no story. I'm trying to sell. I want to see what you do with it. Coralee stared at the card like it might bite her. Why? Because I don't know, Griffin admitted, and it was the most honest sentence he'd spoken in years. She could have vanished. He half expected her to. He told himself that if she did, if she maxed it out on herself and disappeared into a hotel suite for a week, he wouldn't even be angry. He'd almost expect it. Almost want the confirmation that the world worked exactly the cynical way he'd always assumed. What he did not expect was what his assistant, a sharp-eyed woman named Delphine Okafor, who tracked the card's activity out of pure professional habit, brought to him 11 hours in. Sir, you should see this. The first charge was $7 and change. A value meal, split, judging by the time stamp, between 2 people. The second charge, 40 minutes late, made Delphine go quiet before she even said it out loud. $2,100 at a pharmacy across town. Not the kind of pharmacy near where Coralee had been sitting. A specific one. Griffin looked it up. It specialized in compounding medication, insulin, chemo support drugs. Things people needed to stay alive, not things people bought to feel rich. Who's it for? Griffin asked, though he knew Delphine couldn't possibly know. By hour 15. The purchases had climbed into a pattern that made no sense for a woman who'd been sleeping outside a gas station 2 nights before. A storage unit rental, paid a full year in advance. A stack of contractor-grade toolboxes from a hardware store, $600 at a thrift store, but the transaction list showed children's winter coats, sizes ranging from toddler to teenager, far more than one boy could ever wear. A folder of cash withdrawals, small enough not to trigger alarms, each one made near a different corner of the city. Griffin recognized only because his own real estate portfolio touched half of it, the corners where people like Coralee used to sit. Griffin told himself he was watching out of curiosity. By hour 18, he knew that was a lie. He was watching because something in his chest had cracked open, and he needed to know where the crack led. At hour 20, Delphini's voice cracked slightly over the phone. "Sir, she just spent $18,000. On what?" "A funeral home. Full service. Casket, plot, everything. The name on file isn't hers." Griffin sat in his glass office, 40 floors above a city he'd never really looked at. And for the first time, in longer than he could remember, he felt something close to fear. Not the fear of losing money. He'd lost more in worse ways and slept fine. This was different. This was the fear of understanding, too late, that the story he thought he was writing had never been his to write at all. He found the name on the funeral home invoice. Wendell Pruitt. He ran it. Wendell Pruitt had died 4 days earlier in a shelter 2 miles from where Coralee had been sitting with her sign. No family listed. No next of kin. Just a case number and a note in the county system. Deceased, unclaimed. Cremation pending due to lack of funds. Griffin remembered, faintly, cruelly, that he had walked past that same shelter 8 months ago while scouting a property acquisition, and he had thought, in the careless way rich men think, that the block would be worth more without it. At hour 22, he stopped watching the numbers and went to find her himself. He found Coralee not at the gas station, not at any shelter, but standing outside a small, sagging building with a hand-painted sign, Grace Corner Aid Station, closed until further notice, taped hastily over the door. She was talking to a man in his 60s, a former volunteer, Griffin would later learn, who had run the place for 15 years out of his own pocket until his own pocket ran empty. In her hand was an envelope. Griffin watched from across the street as she pressed it into the man's palm, watched the man's face fold in on itself, watched him grip her wrist like she was the only solid thing left in the world. Griffin didn't understand yet, not fully. He crossed the street. Coralee. She turned, and for the first time since he'd met her, there was no guard in her eyes, just exhaustion, and something rawer underneath it that looked almost like relief that someone had finally caught her. "You weren't supposed to watch," she said quietly. "I couldn't stop." His voice didn't sound like his own. "Coralee, that money, you could have used it for yourself, for your son, a home, anything. I did use it for him." She looked back at the boy, who was sitting on the curb, still drawing his wing. Woman, now surrounded by smaller figures, other children. Griffin realized, the ones from the thrift store coats. "He asked me for one thing when you gave me that card. Not toys, not a house. He asked me to make sure nobody else's mom disappeared the way his dad did." Griffin felt the ground tilt. Disappeared? Coralee's jaw tightened, but she didn't look away. His father died in a shelter 11 months ago. Nobody came for him either. No card. No stranger with a black wallet asking what he wanted before. He was gone. I buried him with money I begged for on a street corner, $20 at a time, and it still wasn't enough. And I swore that if I ever had a single day where I wasn't drowning, make sure it never happened to someone else on my watch. You gave me 24 hours where I wasn't drowning, Mr. Wexford. I wasn't going to waste it on myself. It was the funeral home invoice that finally broke him, not the number, not the extravagance of it, but the name he hadn't let himself think about since he read it. Wendell Pruitt. Griffin had known a Wendell Pruitt once, a lifetime ago, a groundskeeper on his family's estate who used to sneak him lemonade in the summer when his father worked him too hard on the tennis courts. The only adult in Griffin's childhood who ever asked him how he was doing and actually waited for the answer. Griffin, had lost track of him after the man was let go in a round of cost-cutting. Griffin himself had approved. 20 years later, without a second thought, a name on a spreadsheet, a line item, nothing more. He asked Coralee, voice barely holding together, if the Wendell Pruitt she'd buried had once worked on an estate outside the city. Coralee's face changed slowly, carefully, like she was watching something terrible and beautiful happen in front of her at the same time. He talked about a boy he used to know. Rich family, said the kid, was the only one in that house who ever said thank you. Griffin Wexford, who had not cried since he was younger than the boy drawing on the sidewalk beside them, stood on a broken street in front of a woman with $41 to her name and wept. He didn't try to fix it with the check that night. He understood, finally, painfully, that a check was the easy version of decency, the version that let a man feel generous without ever having to feel anything else. Instead, he stayed. He sat on the curb beside the boy and asked him to teach him how to draw the woman with wings. He listened while Coralee told him about Wendell in fragments, how he shared his food, how he stitched blankets from donated coats, how he died with more people who owed him than people who ever thanked him. Griffin realized that the $62,000 hadn't purchased medicine or coats or a burial plot. It had purchased dignity for people the world had decided were disposable, bought back in small, defiant transactions by a woman who had every reason to spend it on herself and chose, instead, to spend it on keeping a promise to a dead man and a grieving son. The following week, Griffin Wexford did not make headlines for a donation. He made no public statement, held no press conference, hired no camera crew to capture his transformation for the world to admire. He quietly bought the building that used to be Grace Corner Aid Station and signed the deed over to Coralee Vance, not as charity, but as a job. Director, full salary, full authority, full trust. He funded it, not with a one-time gesture designed to ease his conscience, but with a standing account that Coralee controlled without his oversight, without his approval, without a single string attached, because he had learned in 24 hours what most men never learn in a lifetime, that the people the world overlooks are not the ones who need to be tested. They are the ones who have already been tested, more than anyone should ever have to be, and they have already passed. Months later, Griffin visited the aid station on a quiet afternoon and found the boy's drawing framed on the wall behind the front desk. The woman with wings, no longer tired, surrounded now by dozens of small figures Coralee had helped since that first impossible day. Underneath it, in the boy's careful handwriting, were 6 words that Griffin read every single time he walked through that door, words that had rearranged something permanent inside. A man who once believed the world was too big to fix. She saved people instead of herself, and that's how I knew she'd already won.
This story reminds us that you don't need to be a billionaire to change someone's life. Sometimes all it takes is choosing someone else over yourself, even for just one day. Thank you for watching. Hit subscribe and I will see you in the next story.